Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. Great to be back with you after, let's see, when was the last? Oh, no, I was on at the end of last week. But, you know, the holidays are over, and so I'm back with you pretty much every day now, unless I am traveling. And it's great to be back with you again today. Let me make sure that all my indications are that everything is the way it ought to be. Got my microphone on. I was a little bit rushed this morning. Wow, got a lot to talk about today. First thing I want to mention, though, is we are celebrating the 25th year of doing an event that I know I mentioned at the end of last week, but I'll mention it again, called the Martin Luther King Leadership Breakfast. That breakfast is going to take place at 10 a.m. on the holiday. That's, of course, Inauguration Day. So if you're going to the inauguration, obviously you can't be there. But for all those folks who aren't or can't be at the inauguration, and obviously cannot be there because Martin Luther King's holiday, as you know, falls on different Mondays. It's either, sometimes it's the second, sometimes it's the third. It's never the fourth or the first. But sometimes it's the second, sometimes it's the third. In this case, it is the third Monday, I'm pretty sure, but the 20th, so later in the month. Sometimes it's around the 15th. And I know one year, in fact, for Donald Trump's first inauguration, I was able to get there for some of the festivities because our breakfast fell on a different time. But this time it falls on the Monday of the inauguration. So I've got a 25-year commitment to this breakfast. And I've seen presidents come and go. There's no way I cannot be at the breakfast in order to go, as much as I would love to be. Of course, I don't envy the traffic in Washington, D.C., and those of you who are going to be braving those crowds, but I know it's going to be worthwhile. So that aside, I've got the Martin Luther King Leadership Breakfast. For those of you who aren't going to the inauguration, if you want to go to an event that commemorates the life of Dr. King, as I think most of us remember him, most of us do not associate him with Black Lives Matter or Al Sharpton or some of these other bozos who are nothing but race hustlers. We associate him with as a man who tried to project love, tried to project unity, tried to affirm America for our desire to be true to who we are and what our founding documents represent. And his dream was of a beloved community in which we would not judge one another by the color of our skin, but the content of our character. And I think that's his most famous quote. So if you want to go to an event that really commemorates that, rather than all this other garbage that is sometimes subsumed under the heading of civil rights, you are really going to enjoy this. It is Christian at its foundation. It is nonpartisan. It is not political, although I have to admit that there are some people on the left who hate it because they hate me. Let's just put that out there. I know that's the case. But the breakfast is not about me. It's about really the legacy of Dr. King. It's about bringing people together across racial and cultural lines, which is the mission of my organization. I think Dr. King really wanted that. He said he wanted all of us to sit down, at the table of brotherhood. And I think that's a wonderful vision. That's what we're celebrating. So we honor police, firefighters, sheriff's office, people in education, people in business, people in medicine. We honor people in ministry. We honor 2 students. We give scholarships to 2 students every year. And we include, by the way, both government schools and Christian schools in that, students who we think are doing worthwhile things. Male and female only, by the way. That's all. That's it. We're never doing anything else, okay? We're not honoring any people who aren't clear about that. That would be disqualifying from my perspective. But it's a wonderful event. If you are in the local area and you want to go to a wonderful event, you can go to our website, thecalled.org, because it's sponsored by our church, thecalled.org, just like it sounds, THECALLED.org. And the MLK breakfast will pop up immediately. Click on that. It'll tell you how to buy tickets. Tickets are $35. A table is $400. A reserve table is $400, which means you get a label on the reserve table, and we try to give you good positioning for a reserve table. In other words, down near the front, although we've got many of those tables, of course. Maybe the key spots are taken by our long-term sponsors, what we call our honorary committee, people who've been giving to the breakfast over the years. But we still try to position all of our reserve tables in the best spots we can give them. So tickets are $35, tables are $400, reserve tables are $400, and you can be a sponsor for anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. So you can give more than that if you choose to. If you want to advance the cause of unity in America, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's the vision. The vision is not this tribal nonsense that the left is trying to promote, and frankly, that the Democrat Party has promoted. They call it identity politics. I call it tribal warfare. That's really what it is. Pitting one tribe against another, whether the tribe is based on gender, or it's based on race, or it's based on ethnicity, or it's based on whatever. That's an old saw, and it's time to lay it to rest. Jesus said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. That's one of the reasons why we include our firefighters and our police officers and our first responders, because I right after 9/11, I realized, we give them accolades after something bad happens. We ought to be doing that on an ongoing basis. And so ever since then, for 24 of the 25 years, we didn't do it the first year because we frankly didn't even think of it. But for 24 of the 25 years, we have included our first responders. And of course, that means we haven't bought into, hate the police, defund the police, and all that reimaginable. We think the police are some fine people, some of the finest in our communities, and they're serving us overwhelmingly with excellence, and honor and duty and integrity. And we ought to honor that. And so we do. So if you want to come to an event like that, that's going to encourage you and it's going to uplift you, come on out to the Martin Luther King Leadership Breakfast. It's on Monday, January 20th. It goes from 10 to 12. So that means people who are working, if they can leave work and go back, they do that, because we are very precise about it. It doesn't take all afternoon to do this. So we try to get people out of there by 12 o'clock. Sometimes it might go to 12:01, 12:02, or 3:04, but we're not going past that, because we realize this is a work day for many people. Many businesses support our effort, and we don't want to take all day to do this. And so this is the 25th year. Might go 5 or 10 minutes beyond, because we do have a video that we're going to show that we think will depict the history of the breakfast. So that may add a little bit more time to it. But it won't be much longer than 12 o'clock. We're going to stick to our 12 o'clock out is our goal. So if you want to come to something that is encouraging and uplifting and inspiring and moves quickly, because we move it, come on out. Now, I have to tell you in full disclosure that I made a commitment when we started this that every 5 years I would be the keynote speaker, every 5 years. Now, guess who the first keynote speaker was? None other than Dr. Alveda King. Oh, my goodness. Which reminds me, I've got to send her some copy to videotape. She was our first keynote speaker, so she's going to have a little video message for us for this one. She was our first keynote speaker, and she kicked it off for us in grand style. She really did. Wonderful, wonderful sister in Christ. I've known her now for, my goodness, probably, because I knew her before that, so I've probably known her close to 30 years, or certainly over 25, because she was the first speaker at the breakfast. So, and that was 25 years ago. Think about that. 25 years ago. She and I both were considerably younger when we started this endeavor. But at any rate, I just want to invite you to come January 20th, 10 a.m. at 725 Wood Lake Drive. That's the Delta Marriott in Chesapeake. 725 Wood Lake Drive in Chesapeake, 10 a.m. Go to the website, thecalled.org. You can buy tickets. You can get a reserved table. I think you can even get a vendor table. If you want to be there to display your wares, you can get a vendor table. And you can become a sponsor. Sponsorships begin with silver at $1,000 and go up to underwriter at $5,000. So, and you know, it's got several levels in between, obviously. So go check it out. And you can't maybe do any of that. Just want to come on out. Tickets are just $35. Believe me, I think once you come, you'll be glad you did, and you'll want to come again. We have, on average now, about 300 people show up to the breakfast. So I hope you'll be one of them. Okay, want to get that out of the way for all my local people. And even if you're not local, fly on in. We'll get you in there. Now, I want to remind people, however, it is not a walk-in deal. You can't walk in the day of the breakfast and get in. Well, they say you can't. It's unlikely that you could, because we have to reserve these breakfasts 4 or 5 days in advance. We have to give the hotel a final count. And they charge us a penalty for every breakfast we add after we give them the final count. So, right. So if the breakfast normally would cost us, say, $25, I think they're a little bit more than that because we don't make much off the breakfast at all. But say if they would cost us $25, but you don't show up till the day of, and we don't have a breakfast reserved for you, and they've got to scramble to get a breakfast for you. Now it's going to cost us $30. Okay, or something. Don't hold me to those exact numbers, but you get my point. There is a significant penalty for people who walk in, so please don't do that. Go and reserve your ticket now. And by the way, even if you can't come, you just want to support it because of the vision I've given you, just make a donation to it, because the donations go to scholarships for the kids and to support the Maximum Potential Christian Academy, our school. As I said before, I won't elaborate on this, but every 5 years I'm the keynote speaker. So year 25, I am the keynote speaker for the breakfast. Now, normally what happens is at the very end, I get up and make some brief remarks, 5 minutes or so. Just try to lead people on a very high inspirational note. Not that the keynote speaker, whoever we've chosen, hasn't already done that. But since I am the founder and the chair, I feel it's my duty to sort of have the final word, if you will. And so I do that. But on this time, I am going to be the keynote speaker. We give the speakers 25 minutes. They can take a little less. I'm going to shoot for about 20 minutes. But I'm looking forward to it because I really believe there is so much to be said about the racial condition of our country and the factors that have led to where we are right now. I'm hoping that the next 4 years will be, as I've said, an era of restoration. The era of restoration, when we're going to be restoring some fundamental things to our country that are so desperately needed. So this could be the kickoff for that. I know there's a much bigger thing happening up in Washington, D.C., which we can't even begin to compete with, and we're not trying to compete with it, obviously. I am elated for what's going to be happening in Washington, D.C. that day. Elated, by the way, which leads me into the discussion of the issues that the election was certified yesterday. President Donald Trump is now officially president-elect, and he will be sworn in on January the 20th on Inauguration Day. So I am thrilled by that eventuality. So, and I know many of you are as well. I've said that the breakfast is nonpartisan. It is non-political. I don't make it Democrat or Republican. But needless to say, because of my own political stands, there have been those people who don't like the breakfast because they don't like me and they don't like my stance on the issues. And here's my message to them. Too bad. Because the breakfast is not about me. It's about celebrating what I consider to be the true and honorable legacy of Dr. King for our country, which is a legacy of unity, a legacy of love, a legacy of community, a legacy of commitment to merit and earning one's way, as opposed to special treatment of people because of alleged real or alleged wrongs to their ancestors and this kind of thing. I think he understood. You can't run a country. You can't run anything by looking in. You can't drive a car looking in the rearview mirror, folks. You can't do it. You look in the rearview mirror and try to drive to where you're going, you're going to crash. You can glance occasionally to get your orientation, figure out what's around you, but you can't stare in the rearview mirror and drive a car. That'll kill you. And there are people who want us staring in the rearview mirror of the history of our country because they want to kill us, frankly. Yeah, they want to kill the country. They want to fundamentally transform it. And the way to do that is to gaze at the past and claim that nothing's really changed and this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, the Martin Luther King Leadership Breakfast that I and my wife have founded, that we are going to be having the 25th of, is not of that ilk, needless to say, okay? We've never invited Al Sharpton, and we never will, because I consider the man to be a racial buffoon and just a windbag and a blowhard and not even a minister. So the people we invite to speak are people who we feel have something substantive and helpful to say. So I hope that I meet that bill. I hope that I live up to that description come January 20th when I give the keynote address for the 25th anniversary of the Martin Luther King Leadership Breakfast. And I hope that you will be there. Okay, I spent enough time on that. But it is important because obviously we're getting down to the wire. We've got to give a count in about 9-10 days. We've got to give the final count. So I want everybody who's coming to just get in there, get your tickets now so that we're not scrambling at the last minute trying to put 10 more people in, 20 more people in. It does happen, and that it's costing us a whole lot of money, and it's a whole lot of inconvenience and headache. Get in there, get it in early. And like I said, even if you can't come, you can always buy a ticket. You can always make a donation. You can say, hey, look, use this however you will, but I just want to support the event because I like what you've described. I like what it represents. Okay. The first thing I want to bring up is you've heard me talk many, many times. I guess I should say the second thing I want to bring up. You've heard me talk many, many times about the fact that the left doesn't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about our country. In fact, they hate you and me because of where we stand on the issues. But they don't care about the country. They don't care about the American people. They don't. They see us as in the way. Unless you're one of their sycophants and you can be used by them, well, that's different. But if you're not only do they not care about you, they want to destroy you. That's why they went out of their way to sweep up everybody who they thought had any association with January 6th. It's not because, as some are describing it now, the left is still beating the drum. They don't think that Trump paid the price he should pay for January 6th. It was a violent act. It was an attempt to overthrow the government, which is a whole lot of nonsense. And first of all, let me just make this clear. The most violent act of the January 6th debacle, I'm talking about, of course, January 6th of 2020, the most violent act of that debacle was the killing of Ashley Babbitt, shooting Ashley Babbitt in the face for trespassing, because that's really what it boiled down to. She was apparently coming through a window, and this police officer shot her in the face. She was unarmed. A woman, no threat, a veteran. To my knowledge, nothing I've heard suggests that she was a threat to anybody who had any intention of doing anybody any harm. And she was killed, summarily executed. Now, I say this without any apology or equivocation because it's the truth. Of course, I don't need to tell you this. I happen to be an American of African ancestry. The cop who shot her was also an American of African ancestry. And you and I know that if it had been a black woman trespassing on government property, shot in the face by a white cop, that cop would probably be in jail right now. You and I know that. Now, who are we kidding? to not acknowledge that. It would have been a racial conflagration. Oh, once again, America's racist and the cops are racist and they killed this poor woman and she was unarmed and all she was doing was trespassing and nobody deserves to be executed for trespassing. But because it's a black cop who killed a white woman, oh, he's a hero. Probably the only time in the history of our country that anybody has been dubbed a hero for shooting a woman in the face. But somehow, ridiculous. We're talking about violence. That was the most violent thing that happened. Now, I'm not saying that going into the Capitol was the right thing to do. I don't think it was. But let's face it. All these people saying to people like me and others who question the election, who felt that there were so many shenanigans and so many things that happened in that election that raised questions. And, you know, I would respect Democrats to the left more if they said at least, look, we understand that because of COVID, there were some things done that weren't normal, and we understand how that would cause people to raise questions. Okay, we really do get that. But they won't even acknowledge that. So you know what that tells you is they're liars. They wanted to even acknowledge the insecure, the unsecure drop boxes and the ballot harvesting and the ballots coming in after the election and all kinds of weird stuff going on. They won't acknowledge any of it. It was a perfectly normal election. It was not. And the Heritage Foundation has documented thousands of instances of attempts to skew the election. And of course, my friend Dinesh D'Souza did a film about this, showing by geofencing the amount of activity that was going on around these drop boxes, which, I mean, you could stuff these things with ballots. Who would know the difference? There was nobody guarding them. So look, I'm one of these people who says I can't say definitively that Donald Trump won that election because I don't think anybody can. So much craziness went on around it. But I can say this definitively. There were enough irregularities, illegalities around that election that it is perfectly appropriate to question it and perfectly appropriate to go back and re-examine before certifying that election, re-examine those ballots, where they came from. In other words, just take a look at the whole thing, do an audit of the whole thing. Perfectly reasonable to do that. Oh, no. You're crazy. You're a conspiracy thinker. Listen, folks, I've said this before. Let me say it one more time. I would rather lose an election with integrity than win one by cheating. Now, I mean that. Because, you see, I believe that in the long term, because I love this country, for the good of the country, it is better that elections are perceived as having integrity by the American people than to undermine that for my own benefit or my own interests. I'd rather lose with integrity than to win by cheating. I've never heard a Democrat say that. Have you? Have you? No. But you know why? Because they won't. Because they don't believe it. They would rather win by any means necessary than to lose under a system that has integrity and honesty and that is honorable and unassailable. They don't want that. They want to win at all costs. Because it's about them and their power, not about what's good for America. I'm giving you a viewpoint that's based on what's good for America. Their viewpoint is based on what's good for us. Now, I've said that last comment, what's good for us, I've said repeatedly, these people don't care about you, they don't care about me, they don't care about the country. And they don't even care about the people who follow them, their constituents, unless, as long as they're doing their bidding, they will placate them and, pat them on the head and, all that. But they're not really interested in their well-being. Joe Biden's exit is demonstrating this in spades. Because this man is almost as if he is saying, since America was not smart enough to elect a Democrat, I'm going to punish the country. I mean, this latest thing, he's releasing all these terrorists from Guantanamo Bay. Barack Obama started this mess. We got to close Guantanamo Bay. We got to close Guantanamo Bay. But they found that they couldn't close Guantanamo Bay because there were a lot of dangerous people there. And they knew that if they just flung the doors open, somebody's going to get killed, and then they would get blamed for it. So once again, not because they cared about the American people, but seeking to cover their own rear ends, they just didn't close it, but they just kept pushing them out. The last time I checked, don't hold me to this exact number, there's a significant number of these people that they let out who are documented to go back to terror and go back to fighting the Islamic Jihad against the world. So now they've just released I think, 11 to go to Oman. Now these are supposed to be rehabilitated. Yeah, okay, we'll see. And they're doing this in the aftermath of an Islamic terror attack on one of our cities. Now, what does that tell you? I think not only is Joe Biden conveying he doesn't care, he's basically thumbing his nose at the American people and saying, you people are stupid. You don't know what's best. I do, and I'm going to do it whether you like it or not. And since you didn't reelect me and you didn't reelect my hand-picked successor, I'm going to shove it in your face. I mean, folks, this makes me, it really makes me shudder. He gave presidential, and again, I don't know whether the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Presidential Citizenship Award are two different things. They seem to be, although I think he's trying to conflate them. But he gave these awards to Hillary Clinton. Remember what Hillary Clinton said, half the country are what? Deplorables. What do you do with the deplorables? I don't know. You put them in concentration camps? Do you kill them? What do you do with them? You abort their babies? I don't know. What do you do with them? What do you do with a bunch of people who you have in effect declared are not worthy of being in our country because they don't agree with you? Now, I've said many times, these people who say, if Donald Trump gets elected, if George Bush gets elected, I'm leaving the country. I say, bye. Bye. Please don't come back. Happy to see you go. But I've never called for the destruction, the deportation, the annihilation, the incarceration of people I don't agree with, ever. Ever. I've never said they need to be kicked out of the country, ever. I think they need to self-deport because they hate the country so much. Why not leave? And some have. Good. Goodbye. Good riddance. But I've never called for anything to be done to them. I mean, look, they are a coalition of the godless, and they are trying to lead this country over the cliff and into the abyss. But the way to deal with that is with debate and discussion, persuasion, and just the relentless commitment to truth. Not by trying to hurt them, trying to harm them, trying to do wrong to them, trying to destroy them, lying on them, slandering them, trying to prosecute them and put them in jail. That's not the way you deal with it. You deal with it by truth. The Bible says that the truth is a two-edged sword that cuts the dividing of soul and spirit, of joints and marrow, is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart, and there's nothing hidden from his sight. I believe that's Hebrews chapter 4, I think. Take the word and slash him with it. Not with a machete. You don't shoot him with a gun. You take the word of God and you slash him with it. Because you know what the word of God does when you slash people with it? It heals them. It helps them. It doesn't wound them, although it may feel wounding because the truth can be painful. It may feel wounding, but it's actually healing. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. So Joe Biden, he's trying to shut off oil drilling along, I forget the exact number of acres, but he's basically trying to make it impossible for Donald Trump to open up leases that are potentially oil-rich coastal lands. He's essentially trying to make sure that his failed policies on energy have to continue, which means he's trying to make sure that you and I pay higher energy prices. Again, what is that all about? Well, you're too stupid to understand that they're saving the planet, so I'm going to punish you for it and make sure that you pay the price. It really does. I keep accusing Donald Trump of wanting to be a dictator, wanting to be a Hitler, and all this nonsense. I mean, complete and utter nonsense. But this is the way a dictator behaves, the way Biden is behaving right now, because in our constitutional system, the American people have rejected your leadership. They've rejected your policies. Now, if you were truly a gentleman and you were truly someone who said, you know what, I am not the sovereign, the American people are, and the American people have spoken. It is time for me to step back and allow the American people to implement the policies that they've chosen to implement. No. The American people can go take a flying leap in the lake. Because I know better than the American people, says Joe Biden, and I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And I'm going to do it on my way out to let them know that as far as I am concerned, I run things. And I'm going to do things my way. I mean, it's the attitude of the dictator. As opposed to, look, obviously, some of my policies and approaches are not in sync with where the American people are, but I don't get to run the country however I want. The American people do that. That's what our constitutional system is set up, and I respect that. But oh, no. So off he goes on a frolic of his own. I mean, George Soros is an enemy. He's an internal enemy of our country. Once again, I'm not saying that to try to encourage anybody to do the man harm. I don't want that. Let me be clear. But I do want us to be clear on who he is. I mean, the man's an enemy of this country. He hates America. The man is a full-blown megalomaniac who thinks that because he's been able to hoodwink even countries out of billions of dollars and make himself wealthy, that he knows what is best, not only for America, but for the world. And you're going to give this idiot the highest civilian award in the land? No, idiot's too easy. That's too kind. You're going to give this man who is personified evil. That's right. George Soros is evil personified. Every wrong thing imaginable he supports. Once again, the coalition of the godless. And Hillary Clinton is just as bad. Hillary Clinton, the disciple of Saul Alinsky, the communist. And, you know, it saddens me that people like Denzel Washington, I understand he got it too, but it saddens me that people like him allow themselves to be used like that. Because what he should have said was, look, I'm a Christian. I don't agree with your policies. I'm not, no thanks, but no thanks. I'm not receiving it. I mean, that would be like if George Soros came up with some kind of award that he was going to give and plucked me and said, well, you know, I don't agree with you, but I'm going to honor you. I would say, no, thank you. No, thank you. Because I'd feel like a total hypocrite, allowing myself to be honored by the likes of George Soros. But these people have no moral core, and they will do anything in order to further their agenda and to enhance their power. So Joe Biden is doing all these questionable pardons. You know, I was thinking to myself, probably what he ought to do is just give the Presidential Medal of Freedom to every illegal immigrant in the country. Because I think that's what he'd like to do. But while he's at it, you might as well give it to all the cartel members, too. Down in Central and South America, might as well give it to them, too, because, I mean, they're his partners in crime. I mean, it is sad. This man is just doing one thing after another to try to undermine the agenda the American people have called for when we elected Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States. Have you heard this one? Biden is trying to go out banning natural gas water heaters. Now, natural gas is some of the cleanest energy on the planet. He's going out trying to ban natural gas water heaters, which means that the average American who needs a water heater is going to pay more for some, who knows what it is they've concocted that they're going to have to use for to heat their water, and it's going to be a lot more expensive proposition than gas. But he doesn't care about what the American people go through. Oh, here you go. 625 million acres of U.S. coastal territory, Biden has banned oil and gas drilling on 625 million acres of U.S. coastal territory as he goes out. Now, that's not what the American people just voted for, but he's going to do it anyway. Because after all, he is Joe Biden, right? He's a demigod. And if people are too stupid to know that what he's doing is right, too bad. It just, folks, it is infuriating. It really is. It's infuriating. Because everything these people have accused Donald Trump of, they are doing. They've lied on Donald Trump to obfuscate and to camouflage their own wicked intentions. Because this man is behaving like a dictator, I mean, to the nth degree. Look at this. And by the way, they've been doing this all along. So he's releasing people from Guantanamo Bay, right? But look at his policies. $200 billion, $200 billion, maybe more when all is said, released to Iran. And what'd they do with it? They used it to create havoc in the Middle East. On the other hand, our ally, Japan, wants to buy U.S. Steel to save the company, because I understand U.S. Steel is in trouble anyway, to buy U.S. Steel to save the country, and he won't do that because he says it's a national security risk. But remember when we were depleting our oil reserves because of the high prices, to try to bring the prices down? Guess who was selling oil from our oil reserves too? Communist China. Communist China is an enemy of the United States of America. Let's just say it, because very few people will. Communist China is an enemy of the United States of America. That doesn't mean we want to go to war with them. We don't. But we don't want to empower them. We don't want to strengthen them. We don't want to help them. God forbid we should end up in a shooting war with them. We don't want them using ammunition we've given them. And remember, he closed the Keystone Pipeline, but then opened up the Russian pipeline and said that no objections to the Russian pipeline. We would have been able to supply our allies in Europe. Instead, we turned that over to Russia and Putin, who is at best an adversary, probably more accurately can be described also as an enemy of the United States. Now, again, I don't want to go to war with Russia. I don't want to go to war with Putin. But we need to be clear-eyed about what we're dealing with here. And frankly, that kind of sycophantic placating and pandering and submitting and bowing to these foreign adversaries invites war. Because they could become convinced, just like Hitler was convinced about France, when all of his generals said, no, you don't want to tell you, you don't want to attack Europe. No, we're not ready for that. Hitler said they won't fight. They won't fight. France won't fight. They're demoralized. And he was right about France. And you know what? Had it not been for Winston Churchill, he would have been right about Great Britain. Because there were lots of people in Parliament like Neville Chamberlain who would have been happily bowed down to Adolf Hitler. But Winston Churchill was a champion for British sovereignty and freedom and simply wouldn't. He said, never, never, never. We will never quit. We will never bow down. We will never stop fighting. Had it not been for him and his voice, Britain might have quickly put on their top hats and bowed happily to Adolf Hitler to rule over them. And I'm not talking about the people of Great Britain because, very often the rank and file and grassroots people have better sense than these elite politicians who think they know what's best, because what they're really ultimately always doing, what they're often doing, because I hear again, I don't want to blanketly condemn all people in politics, obviously, because I've run for office myself. If I had gotten elected, I certainly wouldn't have been one of those people bowing down to China or Putin or anybody else. And Donald Trump obviously is not doing that, and he's a politician as well. But many of them do, because their main concern is to feather their own nest and advance their own position, their own power, their own importance, their own status. They are trying to set themselves up. And sadly, politics attracts those kinds of people. So, look, there are a number of other things we could get into, but I do want to mention one other thing before I go. A Michigan Democrat who is a Hindu has criticized the people who oppose the H-1B visa program, calling us racist. I'm one of those people, calling us racist and saying, so we got a new one now. We have homophobia, we've got transphobia, we've got Islamophobia. Am I missing any? Well, he's introduced a new one, Hindu phobia. Yeah, the people who are opposed to the H-1B visa are now Hindu phobics. See, this is the way these people are. If you are trying to look out for your own country, your own people, the American people, regardless of race, color, creed, but that American jobs for the American people first. Whoa, 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 whoa. Again, somehow you're a racist. Now, I want to remind you that Elon Musk has very close ties to China. Vivek Ramaswamy is a Hindu. They are both supporting the H-1B visa program. I haven't heard Ramaswamy's name mentioned in this discussion. I haven't read it mentioned in this discussion. But one does wonder. As I've said before, Our immigration policy and laws are not there to serve the world. They are there to serve the interests of America and the American people. They are there to serve the interests of the United States. Period. I don't care whether it serves India, or I don't care whether it serves Hindus. I don't care whether it serves Chinese, the two biggest nations supplying us H-1B visa people. India first and then China second. Now, India is not an enemy, but it's not America. China is an enemy. And we're getting 50,000 Chinese nationals a year through the H-1B visa program, taking jobs that Americans could take. Now, what kind of sense does that make? So if you oppose that, what are you, China-phobic now? I guess we can, the next one, China-phobia will be the next one. Look, I'm not afraid of Hinduism, and I'm not afraid of communist Chinese. I am committed to the well-being of our country. And I don't care what that means in terms of its impact on other countries. Frankly, it's not my concern. They need to look out for their own welfare. I mean, of course, I care about all human beings, but that's a wonderful theoretical statement. But I can't translate that into action at the expense of my own country and our own national security and our own economic well-being. I mean, that doesn't make sense. I mean, that's like some father saying, I care about all of my neighbors. You say, oh, really? Well, how do you prove it? I emptied my refrigerator and my children are starving, but I'm feeding all my neighbors. And people say, well, have you lost your mind? No. I'm showing I don't hate my neighbors. No, you're showing you're a fool. And maybe showing that you hate your family. So, the era of restoration is about to begin. And one of the things that we need to restore is a commitment to truth. The Bible says, speak the truth in love. Notice, I haven't spoken a single thing in hatred. I haven't called for anybody's harm, hurt, destruction, anything. Whatever I call for us to do what we are duty bound to do, to put America and Americans first. Joe Biden is doing just the opposite. He's putting himself and his family and his own economic interests first. I said he probably would have approved the U.S. Steel deal if Japan had done a backroom deal with Hunter Biden. Then they'd probably get, no problem, this is a wonderful thing. But maybe they didn't pay the Biden family, so they don't rank. All right, folks, listen, I love you. I'm praying for you. I pray that this year, 2025 for you, is going to be the greatest year of your life. And that better, even better years will follow. But this is going to be the best one you've ever had. I'm believing that. I'm praying for that. I'm confessing that 2025 is the year to thrive. The best year we've ever had in our lives. Let's believe God for that. Proverbs chapter 4 says, the path of the righteous is like the shining sun that shines ever brighter unto the perfect day. Let's believe God that 2025 is going to prove that. So God bless each and every one of you. Pray for me. We solicit your prayers. And you all know what to do, right? Stand up, step up, speak up, and refuse to back up. Because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. Because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.